some good discussion there as well. We've covered a wide range of topics, and I believe my feat debuted on the internet as well for the first time. So that's a cool thing
that
to
was
happen.
that. I cannot believe
that's Patreon content.
That's for the masses, but the Patreon content's got even more.
Oh no, we should show the foot blurred for this episode, but for a Patreon exclusive, it's just like a 3-second clip of the foot.
Subscribe to the Patreon.
We can start the potty. Let's get it.
All right, it's episode 25 of the PoddyC with your hosts.
Recording started, right?
Recording started. Yep, definitely going. Absolutely good. Good shout, Dorki. We've also got Max and Ella as well, special guest podcast host.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if she. Oh, she's shy. She's going back.
She knows.
Yeah.
Unlucky.
Oh, man.
Well, nevertheless,
Okay.
we carry on. We have some stuff that's come out this week. A lot of stuff's come out this week, actually. It's it's Pandaland Remix Day. It just came out as the day we're recording this, and we also had D4, exciting new season of D4, which Max, you've been playing 3 days in a row now.
Yeah. There's a lot going on right now. Like, I just feel like that's been the case for the last like month and a half. I mean, maybe even really all the way back to Plunderstorm. It's just kind of been like new things in the Blizzard universe coming out at a pretty fast pace. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually found that kind of frustrating almost, because like I sort of wanted to play D4 and Mop Remix as they came out, but like the fact that everything is coming out so quickly, I think it would be fine, except I know that there's going to be like nothing in June, nothing in July, right? And so I kind of wish that things were spread out a little bit more over, instead of, especially like Cataclassic, I'm not personally playing, but you know, guildies are and stuff. So it's like 3 major releases, not obviously in the scale of like a WoW expansion or something like that, but 3 pretty big things all in a week.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Good, Dorki.
I was just saying, like, it was kind of bad with Mop Remix coming out and then like Cata shortly after.
Well,
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're like in June, there's gonna be nothing going on. I feel like there's actually a lot going on if you step outside the Blizzard universe, you know? Like
Fair.
June, I want to say there's like 3 really, really good TV shows coming out in June. House the Dragon season 2.
The Boys.
Just like stuff that
The Boys,
yeah,
yeah.
The Boys, and there's something else too.
Elden Ring DLC.
Holy Elden
Yeah,
Ring DLC.
yeah, absolutely. But like,
Logging.
I was gonna get to that, but like, you know, there's a lot going on in June. Like in June, I'm gonna be feeling good. It's just that it's like Blizzard, maybe that's what Blizzard did on purpose. Maybe I kind of doubt it, but yeah, for someone who's also really still undecided if they want to do Cataclassic, it's like the first classic expansion I really have any nostalgia for. I'll be chilling in June, and then I really don't know how much longer after that the expansion's going to come out. I feel like this expansion might come out sooner than a lot of people think. That's not literally zero inside information.
That is 100% insider information. All right, you guys heard it here first on PoddyC.
Yep, confirmed.
Max just announced that it's coming out sooner than you guys expected.
Famed slayer of NDAs.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I have to be like, it is ever since last year when they got mad at me for in quotes leaking. They like messaged me during a stream. They were like, "Hey, if you ever hear stuff like unofficially or whatever from like a dev, like just try not to announce it early." And it was about the rogue rework for the Amirdrasil patch. It was that, but like Ian said it in an interview. And it was publicly announced from Blizzard, but for some reason that fell through the cracks, and they were like, "Why are you talking about a rogue rework upcoming in the recent season on your stream?" And I'm just like, because you guys talked about it. I don't know. Like, it's not crazy insider information. So when you guys joke about the whole like famed slayer of NDAs, I'm just like really serious. Like, I don't know anything. It would be crazy if I did know something and they knew that I knew something, and I was like, "Hey guys, it'd be weird if it came out early." You know, I think people still have it in their mind that the expansion is going to be like a November thing or whatever. I think it's going to be months earlier than that.
Months earlier, damn.
My headcanon is like August pre-patch, September early expansion. Also based off no inside info. But I think that would be sensible. Miss Pandaria remix ends in like the middle of August, which that could
Yeah,
make
it's
sense
kind
as
of
like a
ominous.
pre-patch date.
Yeah.
Because like, why would you end it early otherwise? Why would you end it and then just leave, a month of absolutely nothing going on? I don't know. So also, it was like on the roadmap. It was right before the divider between summer and fall, but then they said something about accelerating as well at some point. So I don't know. I think it's reasonably likely that it's going to be like we'll be Race World first in September or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to the upcoming couple of months though, and this week. Actually, Dorky, what did you are you mopping? Are you a mop remixer?
I I kind of want to. I mean, I have a bunch of friends who are like trying to come back to the game, and I would actually like to play with them because like I said it before, I haven't played MOB before, and I would like to see what the expansion's about, even though it's not going to be necessarily the same. But man, there's so much stuff coming out. Like I don't know if I have at the time because like I'm like starting to get into TGP prep. There's also Kata I kind of want to check out too. Like goddamn, there's a lot of people playing Kata that play retail, and yeah, like I'm probably gonna dabble in it for sure. I'm just not too sure how much time I'll have to play it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have to go hard is the nice thing. Like, it can just fill any sort of free time. Although there is a feat of strength for doing Mythic Siege of Orgrimmar, which I do want to try and do at some point. But I think that you'll be so OP that you can do it kind of with anything.
Well, see, the thing is for me, like I don't really want to do something half-assed or like I don't really want to play like mop remix casually. Like that doesn't sound that exciting for me. For me, I kind of want to do it like I want to experience it as if it was actually mop. Obviously,
Right.
it's not gonna be the same, but like I want to at least like have like somewhat of difficult content, like actually blind prog stuff and see it. But yeah, that
Yeah.
would require a little bit more
It's tough to do
investment.
if you're not like, playing 24 hours on launch of it or whatever as well then.
Have people done that? Because like I did this in the PTR and we
Yeah.
leveled and we hit max level and then we did all the heroic raids and we did everything, right? Which is actually kind of the main reason that I am not playing it today is I didn't really feel a need to. Like I felt like I went through that. It was really exciting. We went back and did all the bosses and it's like I would just be doing it again and I don't have any really need to level characters on live, which would be like the side benefit of doing it again and I had nothing there for it. But it was really fun.
I want to talk about that actually because it's really weird. So many people in my guild are leveling like their eighth character or something with this, and so they're not playing any of the seven that they already have played and liked, and so like they're playing like something they don't really want to enjoy. They're like the one of the classes they don't enjoy as much, right? Like I feel like it's kind of weird that the way the incentive is set up is our mage main is like leveling, a warlock or whatever, right? Our warlock main is leveling like unless somebody is demented and is like, oh, I'm gonna make a mirror character, which a couple people have done that, but for the most part,
Wow.
it's like people are just making like you'd rather level up something new to have just as an option. So I don't know if there was a way around that, given how they set it up. Maybe just like give you a boost instead of carrying your character over if you made it all the way to max level, something like that. But it is a weird little thing here. I don't know how widespread that is as a problem because it is a big benefit for like returning players that you can just level up a new guy and then play it into War Within. I get that.
Yeah, my biggest gripe with this whole mob remix thing is you're not able to graduate your character early. Like the fact that you're stuck in the mob server for the entire duration kind of sucks. Cause like, what if you're max level on that character, you finished all of, your bronze, Boolean, whatever the hell collection thingy, and you just want to be able to like move that character over to the actual live server so you can start playing it in like season 4 stuff. It really sucks that you can't do that.
Yeah, I don't know how widespread that's going to be as a complaint, especially because there is kind of like it's not infinite, but there's a lot of stuff you can spend bronze on for different cosmetics and stuff, like millions and millions of bronze that you could spend on everything. But I think I get that. Yeah, I could see that being another thing that would be like just if you could migrate early, I don't see why not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
because
you're
like for
good.
like for me, for example, like I want to make a priest because I've never played priest before, but I also would want that character to be on live so I can play like a Shadow Priest and like actually experience what Shadow Priest is like currently. But
Yeah,
that's not gonna be possible.
that totally makes sense to me. Like, if you look at who's going to be playing Mop Remix for a long time, is definitely collectors, and especially collectors that didn't play Mop. Like, they're gonna have checklists of stuff to do every week. They're gonna be like, how long is it gonna take for me to get all of these things that I want? You are someone who's doing it to like, you're kind of just doing it as a other way to level while also experiencing a different thing, and I think it's actually really, really good at that. But then you're like, okay, well now I'm max level. I don't want to collect, but I like playing priest. I just leveled this priest, and now I want to maybe do Mythic Plus with it. But you can't, right? Because it's yeah. It is interesting. You can't graduate it early. That seems off.
All right, how about D4? How's the D4 season been treating you, Max? I've played a little bit of it, but very little. I'm gonna play some over the
D4
weekend,
good?
I think.
I have had an absolute blast. Usually like D4 recently, it seemed like it needed a lot of help. So like I'll
Ooh,
um or what?
ooh, okay. Minor lag spike. Frank will fix that.
Oh, did I lag out?
Yeah, just repeat what you
Yeah.
said.
Oh, weird. Am I unlagged out?
Yeah,
Oh.
all good now. No,
All right.
it was just like 3-second DC.
Weird. Okay, I will. I didn't never DC it all. I'll just restart and he'll cut this as I'll just as if
He
I
loves doing
started.
that. Yeah.
He loves doing that. Yeah. Yeah. I've been playing it for the past couple days, and I usually only plan to do it for like a day or two, but it is so much better. Uh, so much better. I mean, I don't know. I went into I'm like, yeah, I'll play for a couple days, and then it was just like I just went to bed. I got barely any sleep last night because I was just thinking about the build I wanted to play and like maxing out my gear, and that is doing. And I did like I just ended my stream today. I did all the end bosses, and I cooked a really really insane like necro minion variant that was really fun. And I pushed high into the pit. I don't know the changes they made. I'm not gonna like talk about this a ton on the podcast. You guys actually, there's a really good video by Rax and Tarax. Is that how you say his name? D4 Diablo YouTuber, really
We just
good.
call him Rex.
Rax, yeah, super good. He made a really good video kind of explaining why this season is a lot better. And I don't know how many people are going to expect. I think D4 definitely messed up enough at the beginning for most people to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll try it again when there's an expansion or something. I'm not just going to show up for every season. Probably most players. But man, when you come back just from the changes from this season, it is incredible. It is so much better. Like, D4 good, D4 bad, kind of depends on what you want. I always love Diablo games. Like, people think D3 is a bad game. I played D3 season 2 or 3 times a year for like 3 to 4 days every season. To me, that's very worth it. I did that for like almost 10 years, and I had a blast the whole time with like a couple of boys over the weekend. If D4 can get into that, started out really rough, can like get into that area for me, that is like perfect content medium for that game. I am not trying to play an RPG for 2 months, but I would love to play one for a weekend every couple. And that's exactly what it was. The affix system, the new gear, the codex is so much better. Hell tides are like pure dopamine. Like you just never want to leave. It's so good. That's my take.
Yeah, I'm still like level 40 or something, so I haven't even exited World Tier 2 or anything like that. But it does feel like, just from seeing the reactions everybody's had to it, that they've really kind of given up on the original D4 play, because it seemed like they originally wanted D4 to be a game you played like an MMO, sort of, where you were playing it, for weeks at a time at the start of a season or anything like that. And like the game is like a big open world, right? And like they're trying to add a lot of shelf life to the systems, I think. And now you can see I think they've sort of embraced like, okay, we can make this like a more fun version of D3, and people that are blasting super hard can be done in a couple days, and we're fine with that, right? And then like obviously if you're playing more casually, if you're playing on your couch, you could still play for a couple hours a night for months or something like that. But the people that go hard, at least now they feel like going hard is worth it again, which I think it really failed that test with the old mob density and loot systems and everything that have pretty much all been overhauled. So again, an opinion that's based off of not really having yet engaged with the new season, but I plan to over the weekend.
Have you played the previous seasons, Journals?
Yeah, I played every season of D4.
Oh, really?
To a greater, like almost all my characters were abandoned around level 70 in the previous seasons, but I did play all of them, at least to like
That
50
is
or
the
something.
magic number. Like I felt that too. It's like when you played a previous season, you got your character geared, you got to 50, you got to World Tier 3, you got to World Tier 4, you did the Sacred to Ancestral thing, and then you like started getting your kit in Ancestral, and then it was like, why would I keep playing? There's no end game to apply that to later. Going to 100 takes forever, and I'm gonna have the exact same build I have now. It's just gonna be slightly stronger, and it's like there's just no reason that is gone. Like you feel super strong all the way to 100. It's also a quicker thing, and then the maximizing gear of your character and the build possibilities are significantly more. The greater affixing is awesome. It is like that aspect of it because I felt that too, and I did that in the last season. Was really bad. I like
The
got
season
to
mechanic in season 3, by the way, was that was like insult to injury. It was so
yeah.
bad.
And
yeah.
I remember in one of their dev conversations, they said something like they said something like we were really trying to optimize the experience for people's first run through Diablo, and we didn't put as much emphasis on how it would feel doing it thousands of times. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to say because I think most people hear that and you're like, what? Like it's an ARPG, like you just do maps over and over again, right? Like that's the bit. And so it has to be optimized for that. But also, I could kind of understand where they're coming from because I still think, first of all, Diablo 4 sold an insane amount of copies. Like a ton of people bought that game, and I bet the vast majority of them would never listen to this or really any kind of like online content creation stuff, and they just like slam down some brewskis on the couch and are just like slaying demons, and they really care about that first time experience, and they're not playing every season and going and doing all that. They almost treated it like a single player RPG, so that MMO feel, which doesn't resonate with me for sure. I'm not sure how you feel about that. It doesn't resonate with me. I think it resonated. Well, I mean, I don't know if it resonated with them, but I think it was intended to resonate with that group of people who were just playing it through the first time. And I just think it's wild to because like PoE is just like the total opposite market of like who you're going for as a game. But now it's like they're kind of going for like a more casual PoE, and that's just a super interesting lane to go down.
Yeah, that whole classic ARPG, just playing single player campaign is exactly me. Like that's how I played Diablo 4. I had a great time leading up to levels 60, 70 around there. And the game fell off extremely hard for me after that because like I mean, ARPG is just not it for me. Like I'm not as much of an ARPG player as you guys. Simply for that reason. Like I enjoy the process. I played Diablo 1 and 2 and those games were great. And then like when you get to end game, it feels like there's literally nothing to do. So I don't know if that has changed. I'm guessing it's still like roughly the same where you just like get your gear, you get your build, you finish it, and then you're done, right?
There's actually they brought Greater Rifts back from D3, and it's just called the Pit now, and it scales not infinitely, but like level 200, I think is the last level, is insane. Like I was nowhere close to that where I stopped
What
playing
exactly
today.
is that Greater Rift?
It's where there's no loot that drops in the dungeon. You fill up a bar and you're fighting against a timer, and at the end of the bar it spawns a boss, and you kill the boss, and then all the loot spawns at the end. It's basically just like a nightmare dungeon, but way less annoying and more fun and repeatable. Which is existed in D3, which is why nightmare dungeons were so strange because like Greater Rifts were just way better and they existed
Wait,
in the
what's the
previous
difference?
game.
I still can't really tell the difference between Greater Rifts and Nightmare Dungeons.
They're just it's just a more enjoyable nightmare dungeon in all ways.
You don't have to like pick up loot as you're going along. It just all drops at the end, and you don't have to like take this lever and now go collect this stone fragment and put it into this socket.
Thing
Like you
and
just kill a bunch
untie
of
Dude, you know what that
9
sounds like?
people.
It sounds like
Yeah.
Delves compared to M Plus. So you say like Delves are like Nightmare Dungeons, and then
yeah.
M Plus is like
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, there's a big difficulty
they
difference there.
sound the same
Although
almost.
in Nightmare Dungeon, like the pit does have like a again not infinite scaling, but they ramped up the scaling on it from what I've heard, so that the I don't know if build like is 200 completable. Is that something that people are going to be able to do with
I think
optimized
so.
gear?
Yeah, that's definitely the like super hard thing to do, and the whole masterworking system that comes with the pit was also really nice. I noticed that I think for a lot of people, at least for me, when what I loved when Diablo came out originally is you had to like make a character and then you had to kill Lilith, and Lilith was so hard, and that was like the chase to do that. So I think for a lot of people, what you'll do is you'll get to max level, and there's endlessly pushing the pit. But for me, the whole like pushing just slightly higher levels doesn't really do it for me. I love the bossing element.
Mhm.
They added every boss as like a level 200 boss. It's really efficient if you do it too. It gives you like five, basically like five normal boss kills as far as farming like specific uniques and stuff. But like I treated that as like kind of a challenge. Unfortunately, I got way too strong, and I don't know if a lot of builds will be this strong because I was playing like I think the most broken build in the game, but I absolutely torched those bosses like in like 5 seconds. But if I didn't do that, I think they would have been really fun to progress. Most things would still kill you, and I was at about as tanky as you could be. I just killed it before any of that mattered. So if you were to slow that down by a bit, I would have had like multiple days of just killing those bosses, and it would have been a blast. Like they're pretty well made. Like the tuning at level 200 was really good. So I think that's what you would do. You would like work your way up to max level to kill these bosses. At least that was my goal, and I felt like my need to play was done after that. But I felt like I had a really good time.
Yeah, I mean 3 days is pretty good. 3 days every few months for a D4 season is a lot better than it looked like it was trending after season 3 in particular and season 1. Which those looked like, okay, we're maybe going to skip some future seasons.
Is
right?
that
like,
okay? Because I feel like it's weird. Like I feel like the community perception of that game, it's like if you don't want to play it for like, I don't know how long you play PoE seasons. Do you play PoE seasons for 2 months or something? Like
I have
that
some of my favorite ones, but like usually it's a week, maybe.
usually a week or
but
two.
I think it's more
Yeah.
about like the longer term players, because I do notice that PoE at least has like long term players, whereas Diablo is at least for Diablo 3, from what I remember, is just you literally play for a day or two and then you're done for the season.
I think it will still be hard for there to be like people in like a couple weeks, in 3 weeks time. Are the high end players going to have anything left to do in D4? Probably not. But like in PoE, I don't know. There's also a steep fall off after the first few weeks. It's just I think it's the scale of weeks versus the scale of days between the two games, but I don't think that's like a fundamental. And the important thing is like that's for the high end Giga Blasters that are playing like if you're playing 3 days, but you're playing 14 hours a day on those 3 days, like you're getting 50 hours of content,
Exactly, which
4
is
times
nuts.
a year, like.
It's not even
200 hours a year. That's
even like
20 movies. No, that's like
exactly.
40 movies.
And it's not like I'm barely entertaining myself. I was so locked in, guys. Today, Mop Remix came out, and I think there were drops for WoW. I didn't actually know this until I went live today. I lost thousands of dollars today by not streaming WoW and doing anything with just drops on. And instead, I chose to stream Diablo because I was fiendishly, obsessively playing it. That's how much fun I was having, right? And I wasn't planning on that on Tuesday. I was planning on definitely streaming WoW today for that exact reason. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. I got almost no sleep because I was thinking about the game, right? So, like, if you're not playing all day every day with someone with no job that can do that, right? You're probably playing this game for like 1 or 2 weeks and going through the same process, and you would have had a good time. So I don't know. I think it's good, but also that's kind of why I brought this up. I feel like people really want D4 to be bad. Like, D4 was really, really bad. You could, maybe even some people would argue it's still really, they just don't like it. It's not for them, whatever. It's way better now, but I've noticed that, like, I went live today and it was like, wait, is D4 good? Question mark. And the amount of people that were, like, legit, and they were not kidding, like, paid actor, like, bro, is this a sponsored stream? It's like, bro, can people just not even imagine that they made a good change, I don't know.
Oh yeah, people were very not happy with Diablo 4. I mean, it's kind of funny too, because like I remember during beta, there were still people who felt the same, and especially coming from the WoW community. Like, I wonder if part of it is like tribalism, where, especially during season 2, if you guys remember, the player base kind of fell off a bit in World of Warcraft just because a lot of them were playing Diablo 4. And I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Season 2 of Shadowlands?
No, Dragonflight was when D4 came out.
Oh,
I remember because we killed Sarkareth like the day before, or a couple days before D4 came out. It was like, okay, we did it. We could play D4.
Oh wow, what am I thinking of? Oh, I was thinking about all the lawsuits and the Final Fantasy phase.
Yeah,
that was the shit. That was the season 2 of Shadowlands.
That was also season 2.
Departure from WoW. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I remember that now.
I think it's some tribalism, but I think it's a lot of just like D4 bad became such a meme everywhere among like high end players, like because it was the exact opposite of what PoE players were looking for, right? It was the exact opposite. It was in a different way. So I guess the word exact here is not really the right one, but the exact opposite of what D3 players wanted as well, right? And then it also didn't really appeal to WoW players, right? So
Yeah,
it's
no,
like,
D4 was bad. Like,
Yeah, it
hopefully
was-
we get. I mean, well, it's weird. It's so weird for me to say this. I played D4 and absolutely loved every second of it for 3 full weeks, all day, every day when this game came out. Isn't it insane for me to say the game was bad? Because I played the game all day,
It
every day
depends
for
on the
3 weeks and loved it.
expectation. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people expected a lot out of D4, and I think that's
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
big
I
part
was
of it.
still disappointed for
you
sure. 'cause,
also
like,
were like one of the most probably one of the least disappointed probably by it. Like you probably had the most fun, but because I remember on launch like season 0, season 1, both times I wanted to play D4 and I couldn't like get myself to log in after my guy was level 70
Yeah.
because it just felt so icky.
Yeah, I mean, D4
Yeah, so-
started out rough, but it's like it's almost like now that happened, it's become so much of a meme that it would make people happy if it stayed that way. Like people actually don't want it to be good. So
WoW's
either
had
the
this as
meme-
well, right? Like there's a lot of there. It's
Is it a
more,
Blizzard thing?
Maybe, but
no.
I think
It happens with a lot of things too. Like I think Amazon games like New World's a big one.
New World bad.
I remember when New World fell off, like because like New World, even if even if the game became like the best MMO ever, I'm pretty sure it still has that perception of like a dead game and a failed game from Amazon because of how much hype it generated in the beginning. And I think
Yeah,
that like it heavily
yeah.
depends on the expectations and like how hyped it. Because like Diablo 4, as you mentioned, was fucking massive. It was like one of the best selling games of all time,
So was New World.
especially for Blizzard. Yeah, exactly.
Like New
yeah,
World was
and-
massive. So like so those games are not failures. Like at least from a company. It's,
Well,
you're talking
but it's
about a
hard
gamer
to
or
say.
a company.
Yeah,
right?
because I mean, like if you think about it, like in terms of marketing, it was a massive success. But in terms of how the game ended up, probably not so much.
Well, they didn't charge a sub fee and they charged a box cost, and a bunch of people played it, and then everyone stopped. That is from like a business perspective, that's kind of extremely ideal. Except for like the reselling of expansions, obviously, if people stop playing. But like, I bet New World made a ton of money, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%.
And so did Diablo. So like the whole success thing is like, but it just we're gamers, right? So it's gonna be whether gamers consider things successes. My question: Diablo 4 comes out and it's not made by a giant company. Does it get the same negative response, or
I think it'd be like Last Epoch. Actually, isn't that exactly Last Epoch?
Well, Last Epoch also released a much better game than Diablo 4.
Yeah, I think it's a question of expectations as well. Like, I think that is the thing we see is when there's a lot of hype and then it is, bad. Like Shadowlands, a lot of hype, bad, and then that generates like this extra hate. And I think D4 had that as well. I think New World had that as well, right? Whenever there's something that people are hyped about, gamers get hyped in a really unhealthy way about stuff.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And then it turns real bad if they aren't happy with the product that comes out, and in particular if they feel like it's unresponsive to their feedback, to their criticism, if there were mistakes made on it that were obvious or whatever from their perspective, which obviously, especially in the high-end player echo chamber or whatever, like the people consuming content on the internet and tweeting about video games, which are super invested players, right? Like the sort of getting these mind spirals of like, how could they release D4 in this state? How could they have this happen when there was so much testing and so many people working on this? So I think if it had released as an indie game, I don't know, I imagine it would have been a more popular reception, like a more favorable reception, because it wouldn't have had that void of the gap between the hype and how good it actually was. But I also think it probably
100%
wouldn't
true.
have done much better than, like, I think it would have done worse than Last Epoch, because I do think it was a worse released product than Last Epoch, right?
100%,
Last
yeah.
Epoch comes out and it's a game where it's like, well, this thing has some problems with it, right? There's some changes that this game can make, but like they've released a foundation of a really potentially exciting ARPG that came, from the studio of committed enthusiasts, right? Like gamers love that stuff.
You
You know
have
what's the
help.
opposite?
Wait, what are you saying,
gonna
Dorki?
say, you know what's the opposite of this? Remember Power World and Helldivers?
Yeah, all
Those
the
two
games like
games
that.
didn't
Among
have
Us.
much expectation. Yeah, Among Us was a little bit different from that, but those two games in particular, there wasn't a whole lot of expectation, right? Like Power was like, oh, this is just some stupid Pokemon game, and then, like Helldivers, oh, it's just some indie game. But those two games ended up way better than expectation, and I think that matters a lot.
Yeah, Helldivers slaps. That game's awesome. So that's probably why. But dude, you made me realize something, Dranos, just now. Because I always wonder why everyone's always going crazy about shit, like why people are just having these crazy, like seemingly irrational responses. And it's because you mentioned the hype thing. It's so true. Like, um, like No Man's Sky, for example. Remember how mad people got about No Man's Sky? And it's because like it was for a good reason. They literally hyped the game up. They
On
promised things
Starfield
that,
too.
yeah, well, Starfield for a slightly different reason, but No Man's Sky like promised things they didn't do. They were like, you're gonna be able to do this. They were just making that shit up. But then you saw that gamers had the ability to recognize and like they spent a lot of time in working on that game. I haven't played it since. I've heard it's like
It's
okay,
phenomenal.
whatever.
Again,
It's
that game's
really
really
good.
good. Yeah.
It's really good. Okay, well,
Yeah.
gamers are now like if you talk about a No Man's Sky around a gamer, it is a positive reception. Kind of crazy how they turned that around. I was thinking of Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk
Yep,
released,
same one.
and I remember I was like, man, why are people so upset about like Cyberpunk? I don't know. I played it on release and it was pretty fun, and it's like, well, they overhyped it, and I was like, I was asking this person like, what do you mean they overhyped it? And he's like, I don't know. It was like all everyone was talking about for all this time. It's like all they did was like release a trailer and release the game. Like you all fucking overhyped it. Like you know what I mean? Like I guess they were just like releasing a game. They're doing their job. And it was people were just super hyped for it. But I think that's why I've always had such a disconnect to understand why people feel the way they do about these games. Is I do not feel that feeling. That like gamers get unhealthily as you I don't forget how you put it, like unhealthy levels of hype about things. I don't think I've ever felt that. And maybe that's why I don't resonate or can relate to the extreme reaction that comes from something that is looked so forward to like that and not panning out. There's like something wrong with me or
surprising.
something.
It's something wrong. I'll say that. That is kind of surprising. Well, just like imagine like if Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, which is like one of the most anticipated games of the century,
Never played one.
and it okay, well, if you were a massive fan of that, right?
Yeah.
And it came out and it was like, not that good. Like it could be okay, but if it was just okay, I think that'd be a massive disappointment and it would be complete failure.
Bethesda has launched like Starfield, Fallout 76, which has another one of those games that's improved over its lifetime.
Yeah, but Elder Scrolls, they haven't tainted
like,
Elder Scrolls yet.
even if we look at the trajectory from Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim,
Yeah.
if I'm just saying, if you're a fan out there
Yeah.
and you've got your heart set on Elder Scrolls 6 being good, that is an extremely high risk investment there.
Well, but
of years
people
hype.
say the same about Blizzard, right? Like that's exactly how it
and they
happens
write about
with
that
Diablo
too.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and people would have been happier if they didn't get. First of all, Max is just a healthier way of living, right? Like, just don't get hyped about any game to the extent that you are now expecting it to be good. Because if you're expecting something to be good, no matter what, you are worse off than if you're expecting it to, than if you don't have any
I mean,
expectations.
that is hard though, because people are gonna
Yeah.
want to be excited for the games they
It's-
love.
and
Like
it's
Elden Ring
fine to
DLC,
think
for
things
example.
looks
Like,
cool.
I'm super hyped for it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, FromSoft gets a pass because they
Okay,
everything
but what if
they
it
touch
ends
is
up
gold.
being a failure?
Well, then we get
so
mad and
bad.
we're further disillusioned by everything, and we're like every studio sucks, and we get very sad. That's obviously the play if that happens. But
True.
yeah, I mean, in general, to the extent you can, like for me personally, the Elden Ring DLC, I'm willing to give them enough of the benefit of the doubt to pre-order it, which I don't usually do for games except for WoW and stuff, because you got to, and also because I mean, I need Blizzard stuff just because it's like my job. But if your expectation is for a game to be good, like if you are expecting it to be good, if you're feeling like you get like an entitlement toward it being good, it doesn't, like, even if it is good, that's going to feel less good than if you didn't have that expectation. And then it's like, oh, cool, a good game, right? Like Helldivers, right? You didn't have any expectations about Helldivers. Nobody heard about Helldivers
That's how
until
I
they
am all the
played
time.
it, right? Yeah, that's I mean, you're going to
Like if
experience
Diablo
more joy.
is bad, if a Diablo season is bad, it means nothing to me because I will just do something else, right? But if it happens to capture my attention for 2 days, that's great. Now I have 2 days that are captured, and there's zero negative feelings from that. And that's how I approach literally everything. And that you have actually opened my eyes to why, like, the main disconnect. And I've always wondered, I always thought like these people are just like irrational fucking weirdos, like they just can't handle anything. But I now I'm kind of realizing that it's just, it all comes from the anticipation, and that's the thing that I miss. And I wonder, but you mentioned Elden Ring. there is some studios like you're talking about things being hyped and looked forward to and then not panning out. Like in my mind, there is a 0% chance that the Elden Ring DLC will be bad. Like I would bet everything in my life.
Okay, but now you have your
that is good.
expectations really high. You see,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
like,
even if it is
thing.
bad, it's not gonna hurt you emotionally, right? Like you're not emotionally invested in the Elden Ring DLC
okay,
being
if
good.
Elden Ring was complete dog shit, how would you feel though?
Hey, you'd be
I
like,
would be-
okay, play something else.
I would be like, okay, let's play something else. But also, the main reason I brought that up was just that company's real good. There's probably very few of those where it's like for a fact it's gonna be a banger, and that's one of them. And it's not that I'm gonna be sitting around all week like getting all geeked up, being like, oh, Elden Ring, and then I'm just gonna like fizzle out if it's not good. I'm just saying like, it's just, is there any chance it's bad? Like even if they just if they made an Elden Ring DLC and it's just 10 bosses that are just relatively the same, and no lore, no new zones, nothing, and they're as good as like the average good 10 bosses are in that game, I would play that shit and have an absolute blast and find them, I guess. And yeah, I don't know, like that'd be great. It's just it can't miss. It's such a good concept at the beginning, right?
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna
mean,
be a banger.
I think that like getting hyped about games as you hear about them, like that's to some extent like that's normal and
Human. I've been called a
Human.
robot
Yeah.
by multiple people I've dated before. So yeah.
it's I think it's not something that you should try and like punish yourself for doing. It's just I think it's something you want to temper. You want to make sure that you don't let it get over a threshold of to the point where you're going to be disappointed if the game is bad. Not I mean disappointed is I guess a fine emotion to feel, but like if it's going to hurt you really like that's unhealthy I think. And I think we sometimes do like I don't know this for sure. But if I had to wager on the game that's most likely to do this to gamers in the next few years, it's Ashes of Creation. I think that game, I can feel
That's
no
so
shot.
funny that you say that. Oh, okay, so that game's
shot.
definitely gonna be dog shit. But
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be dog.
It's definitely gonna be dog shit. But I
You
don't
can see the
think
hype train
anyone's
building
gonna
around
look.
it. You can.
Nah,
You
nah,
can see
I
the
see
WoW
no
killer
hype.
hype building.
Yeah, I
in
see
it.
no hype.
I see
Yeah, I
zero
agree.
hype. Yeah,
I
I
agree
think
with
like
Max.
Asmongold watches videos on it sometimes, and people.
He's the
Well,
that's
he
the
is
number
the
one culprit
MMO,
for,
the MMO hype master.
exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'll just say this. Anyone, hopefully we can save anyone listening to this podcast. If you're listening to this, if you're hyped for that game, you are setting yourself up to just have a terrible time. That is, again, talk about betting anything. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope Ashes of Creation is awesome and we all get to play it and have a good time and play games. That game will be horrible. I don't know.
Also, Elder Scrolls
Well,
6,
I mean-
reasonable guess. The Elder Scrolls 6, unless Bethesda changes how they have developed since like Starfield. Starfield is just such a huge miss that it's hard to have any faith that they know what they're doing over there with when it comes to like understanding why their games were good in the past. I don't know.
Yeah, it just feels a little bit different with Elder Scrolls just because like it's something it's an IP that they've been on forever and
Yeah.
that's
But like
why a lot of
Fallout
people-
4, Starfield,
Yeah, but
Fallout
that's
76.
gone bad though.
Yeah.
Like think about like imagine you
on
said
there.
that around Far Cry. Do you guys ever play Far Cry games?
Oh yeah.
No.
Okay, so Far Cry games are banger. But like they kind of peaked at Far Cry 3. Like every game since Far Cry 3 has just been trying to be Far Cry 3, but just like newer, I guess. And you could have said the same thing about like, well, it's Elder Scrolls. It has this thing. You could have said that about Far Cry, but now my opinion of Far Cry is like, I know what I'm going to get with a Far Cry game, and it's a shitty remake of Far Cry 3 with like way more expensive investment and graphics, and like they're going to hire some cool Breaking Bad actor to be the villain, but it's like you're just going to play Far Cry 3, right? And you just expect that. What were you saying?
Yeah,
I don't
Sorry,
remember.
go ahead.
No, it was a good. You I think exactly captured Far Cry, the Far Cry.
Maybe Elden Ring is
experience.
that, or not Elden Ring? Sorry,
Elder Scrolls.
Elder
Well,
Scrolls.
has Far Cry already gone bad? Like it's already gone bad.
It is.
It's gone
I
shit,
think it
gone
is
to shit.
steadily in the out of creativity. Let's keep remaking the same game phase. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the next big ones would be like GTA 6. That's a big one. Was it 6? I don't remember what number.
Yeah, 6 is
That
the next one.
I think that's going to be the most well sold game ever. Is like what the projections are for that. Like that
5
game is
was,
going to
right?
break. Was 5?
I think 5 was one of the biggest games of all
I mean,
time, for
over
sure.
time, yeah, because it's been relevant for like 10 years or something. But
Yeah.
Skyrim,
You know
they've
what would've
sold
been
so many different
massive?
times. Apparently, it's Tetris that's at number one. Wait, or Minecraft? It depends. I guess it depends on how you count this.
That's a Mickey Mouse game.
Yeah.
I don't think that counts.
Goddamn Mickey Mouse. What the
Okay,
hell? That don't
hang
talk
on,
shit about
hang on.
Minecraft.
Minecraft, yeah, Minecraft owns. Let's not
Yeah,
let's not
ain't
say
nobody talking
anything.
shit
That
No,
we're
I
gonna
was saying
regret
that
here.
about Tetris.
Oh, Tetris, yeah. Wikipedia
Dude, Tetris
says-
is an OG.
And if someone's saying Tetris is the most well-sold game of all time, that is a Mickey Mouse statistic.
Wikipedia says
That's true.
Minecraft, then GTA 5, then Tetris, and then Wii Sports, and then
Wii Sports
PUBG.
was massive.
Good lord, PUBG.
PUBG
That's
was
PUBG
massive,
was
yeah.
massive. Yeah, 2016 PUBG was insane.
yeah, but for being like fifth most sold game of all time on this list, that's fallen off so
Is it
hard.
more than Fortnite isn't sold? So that's why.
That makes
so
sense,
by the
yeah.
way,
So-
Fortnite would windmill dunk every single one of those games, just in case anyone was.
Nah,
was
you know what?
wondering.
Windmill dunks, Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was ginormous.
That was I kind of forgot. That
That's
was like
big.
an
Every single
entire-
person, like even like the most normie of normies, played it.
Yeah, dude.
And it fell off so fucking hard.
Dude, shout out Riggnaros, the last raid leader to get world first in NA before me, back in Heart of Fear.
Holy, what a
He was the I want to say like world first. I don't remember exactly what it was in Pokemon Go, but he went like psycho in that game. He was playing. I think he was the first to fill his Pokedex with all the available Pokemon. I want to say, just shout out Rig. I think because he tweeted about it and it got a bunch of likes, and I remember that back at the time, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. Rig did the Pokemon Go thing. But people were like ordering Ubers, but asking them to like drive slow, and they were like, there was like laws passed
Yeah.
in places to stop this stuff from happening. That's honestly a cultural impact was kind of insane.
There were a lot of IRL streams too. Like I think I remember Rexel had IRL streams of Pokemon Go. Those were hard as hell.
Dude, that was probably
Dude, you
back
know
when
what
like
game-
IRL streaming was much more work and like money than it is now to do as well. Like I bet if that same thing happened today, there'd be much more of that. Like IRL
What do you
streaming
mean?
Pokemon Go.
Is IRL streaming? Oh, I guess like
Like a backpack is a lot cheaper, right? And like you're
Oh yeah, it's more common now. Yeah,
yeah.
that's 100% true.
yeah.
Like if you wanted to IRL stream as a medium-sized streamer, you feasibly could now, and it was like a big investment, I think, to do it back in
Oh, I have no
2010
idea.
or
I've never
whenever
done
Pokemon
it.
Go came out. I haven't actually done it myself, but I've looked into it a little bit. But this might be one of those things where I'm making stuff up. So I don't
Yeah,
wanna be
I've
too
thought about
confident.
it multiple times, and I think IRL streaming would be really fun, and I think it would be fun to watch me do that. But every time I've done it, it just seems like this big leap I don't want to take. Like, I feel like if you do your first IRL stream, it's probably super chill, but it just seems like such a massive, like, what if you just go live for an hour and it just sucks? And it's just like you're watching, it's like, I don't know, people don't watch me to go places, they watch me to, like, talk about stuff sometimes, you know?
I feel like you talking about stuff randomly on a walk versus flying circles around Valdrakken isn't a huge leap in
Yeah, but it
different
feels
types of
like a
stream.
huge leap.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels like it's like, what are you trying to do here? You know?
I bet the people would respond well to it, but I do get the like that it is a barrier to that crossing is pretty hard.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to the barrier of like just streaming other games in general that I think most streaming. I know Dorki, you had. I think we've talked about this before a while ago. As like streamers trying to how it feels to just turn on your stream, know you're gonna crater your viewership to play another game you want to play, but also if you don't do that, the people who watch you aren't going to know that they want to watch you play other games, so you have to go through the cratering, but it's just like mental torture. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, it's gotten to the point where like I don't really care about it. I mean, mostly because like I know that like they're there for it to watch Van Plus stuff, and they care about like knowing what's the meta tank and all that stuff. But it's still fun for the viewers who are interested in watching, just like me doing different things, like playing Elden Ring or whatever it is.
I've had a different problem recently. I've noticed that anytime I just hunker down on my stream and I just play a game and I don't talk as much, that's when people leave my stream. Like, so basically, I think like my streaming audience outside of the race is just people that listen to me talk, and that is it. And anytime I'm like doing any kind of gaming content, like most of the time, I find that it's that if I am just gaming and in general talking less, viewer count go down. If I talk, viewer count go up. If I stop talking, viewer count go down and play the game. And I wonder which one you would want to do more ideally. Would you rather be a streamer that could just talk and have no content, but you just talk and that works, but then when you play a game, people leave? Or would you rather be a streamer where you don't even need to think about talking? Or would you...
That's actually a tough one.
And you just play a game and people watch you and you just exist. You're basically just like your stream's on, but it just, you don't even think it's on really. Like you have some chat interaction, but you know what I mean? Like which one would you want?
Yeah, because I actually love both, right? Like I think you need a little bit of both, but that's the really hard part. Like for me personally, I love the chat interaction. I love talking to my stream, and they love the banters. But at the same time, doing that for like hours and hours on end can be extremely draining. Like there'd be times where I'd be like, doing that for like the first 5 hours of stream, but then after the first 5 hours, like maybe we start doing high keys, like after, because like usually I start off the stream with just doing whatever the hell, right? Whether it's like opening up my vaults or doing weekly stuff, and it's usually way more chill. But like if I'm ever like actually in the mode and I'm just gaming, it's always nice to just not talk or interact with chat and just like focus on gaming. And there are a lot of people who also enjoy that because they just want to like watch us play at the highest level and hear the comms that we're commsing, if that's a word. And
Good comms.
I don't know, it's hard to yeah good comms. It's hard to have both, but that would be ideal, at least for me.
Yeah, I find if I do like content where I'm not talking to my chat, unless it is mythic progression or like title keys or higher, my viewership's just out the floor. It's nobody.
Wait, which one?
Like unless I'm pushing title keys or mythic progression,
Yeah.
I need to be like interacting with chat, or else nobody.
Oh, yeah,
like
100%,
I can't. I couldn't do like for instance, if I wanted to do like plus 14 keys, somewhat focused or something like that. Like that would not be stream content for me. That would be
yeah.
that
I
would
mean
be
that's
a
also just
recipe
like
for
not
disaster.
interesting.
Exactly.
You have to
right?
ask why they're watching you.
Yeah.
It's like, it
But I
doesn't
could do
really
like
make
weekly
sense.
tens if I'm screwing around with my guild and reading chat. Like the viewership's great. I could do title key push and viewership's great because usually I'm playing with people that are kind of good comms as well. And then obviously mythic progression is like has gotten. Initially, it was something that I got reasonably good viewership in when I very first started streaming, but that was like I was a much smaller. Obviously, I was just starting, right? And also, I was interacting with chat mid-full a lot back then because I was playing a DPS
Yeah.
and I could do that. And also we were a lot less serious. And then it kind of dipped a little bit as we moved up to the like World 50 range. And now that we're up in the World 20 range, it's back to like good viewership to stream prog. So that's nice at least.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of streaming WoW stuff, I do want to talk a little bit this week about some stuff they've announced that is definitely going to dip its toe in areas that all of us play WoW or think about. Oh, you just... Dorki, do you see what you just did? Never mind. I'm just
I
gonna
don't. I mean, I don't get.
people on the
Let's go,
YouTube video
okay.
will... Wow, that's crazy. Dratto. Okay.
Okay.
What was I even saying? I'm sorry. I'm like
You
totally
said dip.
lost.
You said dip the toe, and I couldn't
Yes.
help myself.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I know. Okay, private auras. So
That's a
we've
big
talked
topic.
about private auras just in general a lot, but I think for the first time ever, it's been data mined that dungeon mechanics are going to be private auras, which is, we've kind of talked about this a lot before, but private auras do exist for a purpose. There's been very small examples of them serving some kind of positive good. Most things, they don't matter. And a few things have been excruciatingly bad to deal with private auras and raid. So there's overall the experience is negative. This is not a top player thing. This resonates all the way down through the skill levels of people playing the game. Every level.
Well, if you're a heroic raider, those mechanics all didn't matter as well, right? Like Volcanic Heart being a private aura didn't matter on heroic.
Oh yeah, I guess
right?
all levels of mythic.
Yeah.
Yeah, one was mythic, yeah.
And now they're adding it to dungeons. And it's not even oh, well, you need a WeakAura to solve this thing. It's not even that. It's just like it's annoying to deal with like debuffs on your UI and stuff. And like healers, I know don't get represented a ton on this little broadcast, but they really don't like private auras for like even more reasons. Like it's like it shows their debuffs in different places and like weird shit like that. Like I don't know. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is not for us to all just be like, yeah, private auras are bad, because you all know that. We've talked about that a lot. It's more that we didn't really know what direction they were going to go with this. And now it seems like not only are we getting more of them in raid, but like now they're like, okay, Mythic Plus, we're going to do this too. And that means that
First time ever.
Yeah, they've settled on private auras as a solution. And it's just one of those things where I feel like everyone that pays attention to this is like, these suck. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
All right, so I don't think private auras are the issue. It's bad mechanics are the issue. Like I don't think that like most of the time this doesn't have anything to do with the private auras. Like the volcanic heart, for example. I think volcanic heart is just a trash mechanic. I don't think it has anything to do with the private auras. And the opposite would be, what's that fight called? Chambers, amalgamation, whatever. The one with,
rending charge.
Yeah, rending charge. Yeah, I mean, like that's a fine mechanic, right? Like. It has nothing to do with the private aura at all. In fact, most people don't even know that rending charge is a private aura.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they just know that no one told them to. They just know that no one told them to install a WeakAura that told them what marker to go to, right?
Yeah, because
maybe they even never thought about that.
If it was not required, I think that would be ideal.
If it wasn't a private aura, you would definitely have had a marker and a WeakAura telling you exactly where to go.
That's the thing, because, right?
Yeah,
is private auras, if they're doing their job, you won't know it, right? Like you won't know it if a mechanic, unless you think about it. Rending charge is a perfect example of a mechanic that probably was slightly improved by being a private aura, because we would have had 3 world markers in a triangle, and you would have a WeakAura that tells you go to triangle, and you actually play rending charge more in a more fun way because of that. I think it's one of very few mechanics that was improved by being a private aura, though. I think almost everything else was unchanged.
Yeah, you had a tier list today, right?
I think
I saw and Frank will put that up on the screen right now.
I haven't seen this yet.
Where Dratnos basically made a like tier list of all of the private auras that have existed so far, and he put them in a list of like how they apply to you, and you can see them on here. And like you can see, none of them are in the top tier, which is wow. They made this a private aura, so this was great. Right, the best ones were Blaze, Cleave, and Charge. Just like we said, either of those mechanics, if you didn't have a private aura, you would have disliked all those mechanics more than you do now, because it would have just been annoying to deal with. You had a WeakAura sign it for you. You're having less fun, right? You can still do rending charge, which is like you YOLO it, right? And then there's stuff in the middle, and then the stuff at the bottom. But yeah, you mentioned their mechanical problems. But that's for like raid mechanics, and like I mean I've made that argument a lot before. Like I've shown on PTR how Volcanic Heart was literally a better designed entire boss and mechanic before they released it. They just made it worse. Same thing obviously with the first intermission of Fire Rack. But in dungeons, if you're making things private auras that are just like bad mechanics or not bad mechanics, you're still just gonna have to deal with all the negative sides of private auras. Why is it a private aura? If you made a good mechanic that doesn't require private aura, why are you making it a private aura? You're just making it worse, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely scary to think about what exactly it is.
So we can look at the mechanics that they've chosen to make private auras, and we can think about what is this going to do. So an example of this is Dark Orb on the boss in, you guys know the one in Dawnbreaker, the one that we kill the 3 mini bosses, and then you have Dark Orb on the boss that you just pick somebody and it shoots a Dark Orb at them.
Yeah.
And it has like a little bit of wind-up time.
You can't tell who's targeted, I'm guessing.
Well, you can. It's just a private aura now, so...
no, yeah. Like you can't actually...
You won't have a
WeakAura won't do it.
You won't be able to have a WeakAura that pops up and says,
"Oh,
it's
that's
on you,
lame.
Get out," in text.
Wait, but what's the point of that?
And like a little bit, and like a little lady will be like, well, "Get out," or whatever.
You actually... So apparently there's tech to make it so that each unique private aura has a different sound cue that plays for you. So you could still like put a sound file in associated with Dark Orb that says Dark Orb on you and have that play. But yeah, it doesn't really change anything. Like you could also just always have an air horn whenever you get any private aura on you.
It's gonna cause people to mess it up because if you don't set it up,
well, you have your private aura frame, right? Like you know how you get if you get Blaze, you can still see a Blaze icon. That's just in the private aura frame, right? So it's not. You can't have your WeakAura like customize that. You just can move the private aura frame around on your UI, and like resize it or whatever. But That's what Dark Orb will be if you're
It
talking
feels
about
like
that.
we're in 2005
Yeah, it
with that
sounds so
solution.
backwards.
It is backwards. It's like you're dealing with something that's was in an MMO 15 years ago. It's just like they introduced a feeling like an archaic mechanic. I just don't understand.
Because the thing is,
why
what's
they
the
did
upside
it.
here, right? Like, how can we do a WeakAura for Dark Orb that is going to be bad? Like, what?
Well, just put like if you just put an arrow on the person's head that's being targeted, and
There
you'll
is for
fix.
Dark Orb, right? But like,
Oh, there is. Okay.
how it being a private aura versus it not being a private aura is it's going to show up in a more annoying frame. It's going to show up on your healer's frames in a more annoying way. And you won't be able to make a weak aura that like does anything with it. But what would we do with a weak aura on Dark Orb? What possible upside is there to make
Yeah,
that
yeah, like,
mechanic?
I don't-
There's
it
no
also
aside
just sets a
possible. It targets
precedent, right?
one
Like,
player. Yeah, like
they
if they
could
just
be
want to
doing
make
this for
everything a private
future-
aura, then
yeah.
that's just. I mean, again, it's just worse because almost all mechanics, you can't do anything like insane with your weak auras on it. You can just make it display the information in the way that you personally find the least annoying. And if they want to make it so that they, like, if they want to take that away, that's just making the game worse. That just, I don't know. It's not one of those cases of like, oh, maybe it's better because you're going to play the mechanics in a more fun way, right? Like Rending Charge, I think that was, you can make a really strong argument for Rending Charge that like they actually made that mechanic slightly more fun to play than it otherwise would have been. But I can't think of an M+ mechanic that really accomplishes that. Like even Rolling Acid on the last boss of Dawnbreaker, which is being private aura'd, that one already
that?
you have to, that's the one where you have to, like the green line, you have to look to see whether
yeah,
you have to
I
go to the
remember
left
that,
or the right. Like you already have to look at your character to see if it's the left one or the right one. That it was the same debuff either way, so you couldn't have a weak aura do that for you. Making it a private aura, you know, the only thing it removes is like you can't have
WeakAura
a
would
voice
make it a
counting
little
it
bit
down.
easier for people if it just said like left, and then
It can't say left,
You
but
would
like
left.
that's the
I
thing
am-
is it's the same.
Yeah,
it's the
your
same
WeakAura
debuff
literally
either
can't
way.
say left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no.
whether or not it's a private aura, it couldn't do that.
So
That's the point.
I am a fan of this for one reason. Blizzard clearly is choosing mechanics to make private auras that they feel like they have good animations for in game. And that's probably a chicken before the egg thing. They probably are choosing those because they're like, okay, we don't want people to use weak auras for this. Let's make damn sure that good in-game animations show you this. And it makes them have to be better at that. And I think that's always been lacking. And I think if you're going to make one argument about weak auras having a negative impact on the game, that's one of them, is that definitely if weak auras did not exist, these same mechanics could still exist, but the in-game visuals for them would have to be significantly better. And they're doing that in these dungeons but like I still think the private aura thing is fucking weird and they should just do that anyway. But I do like that it is forcing them to make better animations.
I will contest. I feel like Rolling Acid is one of the worst animations in Dawnbreaker. Though.
yeah, I was about to say it's so hard to trust Blizzard.
We were
Like,
trying to
I
explain
I
to
still
Dorki
can't-
whether it was left or
I
right.
still can't tell. if
It
it's going
seemed
left
really
or right.
obvious to me.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, it
Yeah,
was
I
to
mean,
me as
maybe
well,
obvious,
but like
I didn't get it at all.
the
I
average
needed
WoW player is
WeakAura.
stupider than Dorky, and he couldn't see it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Yep.
pretty
Man, I'm
bad.
dumb as hell too. I need something that tells me straight up, are we going left or right? Because like I'm not looking at that shit. I can't tell.
Well, like so either way, I feel like if a sizable chunk of the player base has a hard time seeing whether it's left or right there, I think that is one of the animations they're gonna change between it now
Exactly.
and it going
Yeah.
live. And
Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree,
it's
like,
just hard,
It is
'cause, like-
obvious. It's just like it's weird. Like they just need to make it more visible. Like what am I thinking of? Like you know how you turn the alpha up and down on something in a UI element to make it like super see through or whatever. It's like too see
Oh,
through
that's
right
the
now.
worst too.
They need to make it more like thick, I guess, to make it obvious of where it's going.
Yeah, you know the worst are when you need spell particle density at a certain amount to be able to show specific mechanics.
I
That's
guess
more of a raid thing, I think, right? But that,
No, it happens in a plus too.
projected textures as well. You ever?
Azumat,
Yeah.
it was impossible to tell what the hell was going on because he was just shooting out black shit all around.
Oh yeah, you needed the weak aura that turned your particle settings down before you pulled
Yeah.
Azumat. That was that was
That is
cursed.
so cool.
The other thing with weak auras or with private auras that I hope they do something about is the macro solution that exists for any raid mechanic that is sufficiently complicated. We will basically just make it work like it wasn't a private aura by using a macro on that mechanic.
yeah.
And I have yet to see a compelling attempt at a resolution to that solution from Blizzard. And
There is none. It's impossible.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. Like, so they were given when they were like, we're gonna do these private doors. We're like, okay, but you need to know this. Here's like 7 workarounds for you doing this, and if you fix it, like, there's no way you could fix all of them. Like, I think for them to fix all of them, they would have to make you unable to ping. They would have to make you unable to type in chat during polls, because you could just simply have a macro that just does a raid say, or like a raid message or a yell, and the WeakAura, that will make the WeakAura work. You're basically, all you're doing when a private aura is preventing the WeakAura's application, or really any add-on, from seeing that you have this thing. So all you need to do is tell the WeakAura you have this thing. You code a WeakAura that, just in the most basic sense, I'm sure it's more complicated than this, and our WeakAura people are super mad at me like dumbing it down like this. I'm sure it's crazy rocket science, but like, you're just the 10 people who ping a warning thing have the red thing in the intermission, and the other people ping the other one, and that's how the WeakAura determines who is on each side, right? And if there was no private aura, the WeakAura would just do that automatically. So it's like, mechanics that are hard enough to require it are 100% still, at least in Mythic, going to be used all the time. It's just that now you have to press a macro when you get it, and that interaction from anyone that's done Mythic is tragic. That is the most complained about thing in our guild. Is
It's
like,
so bad.
private auras have such a negative presence.
Yeah, I mean, every Mythic guild is complaining about that. I don't think they need to fix it, if you ask me. Like, I personally think that if they just made the mechanics more intuitive and more manageable, or in fact, I think it should be easier to do the mechanic by just, like, Natty doing it compared to the macro version. Because the macro version is actually hard as hell. Like, I don't know if it's hard as hell for you guys, but for a lot of Mythic guilds, it's a major problem. Yeah, like you wipe so much to the WeakAura. You don't wipe to the mechanic. You straight up just wipe to the WeakAura. Someone pressing either someone not pressing the macro, or someone pressing the macro twice,
or not knowing. You don't even
or
know.
not knowing.
You're
Yeah.
like, you
Oh,
wiped, and
God.
then it's like, did everyone press it right? And everyone's like, yep. And it's like, well, I mean, I can tell you, if you guys are using our private aura for that, it will not fail if 10 people press it. But if 9 or 11 people press it, it will fail, and someone is lying about not pressing it or pressing it.
Yeah, you're literally
Yeah.
playing Among Us when you're doing
No,
that
you go in,
mechanic,
you
and
like debug it, you make everybody put a /raids.
Yeah.
I pressed my macro into their macro, and you're just, oh god, it's so bad. But I agree with you, Dorky, that like, if they just didn't make any mechanics that required a like programmatic solution to it, then that would be great, right? Like, even Volcanic Heart. Volcanic Heart wasn't solved with macros, although I think maybe it would be if it was re-released now. It was solved with like a list, and then
the list was, so that was the first like private aura we ever ran into that was a real thing. The list was a primitive solution to that. You would have
I think
used a
macros
macro.
are better, and
You would have used a macro, and it would have evolved into a map and all kinds of crazy stuff before that got changed. But yeah, they have even. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned problematic mechanics. So, like, what are the 3 worst private auras ever? It is Neltharion and the first intermission of Fireack. Those are the worst. Shadow cages were really, really bad too, I think, in P2. But like,
and
the intermission was a
Smolderon
huge
Orbs as
problem.
well. Although Smolderon Orbs had the other workaround of the aggro table.
And then they removed it,
that's
which
good.
is funny. But like, yeah, you have think about Neltharion. Make it so you can actually break walls instead of it being a dot that's gonna kill the shit out of you. Okay, now you get 3 rushing darknesses, and instead of sending 2 of them into nowhere and 1 of them breaking a wall and then trying to fit in this tight space, just break 3 walls, and now everyone can spread out everywhere. GG. Never think about it again.
Yep.
That's how it was on PTR, by the way. Just a straight up better boss. They made it worse. And then first phase of Fireack, you don't have the shadow or fire debuff until you soak your first orb.
That makes that mechanic a lot less of a mechanic. Like, that is a better thing than what they did, but it's also like not. Like, you just would have
Not hard enough? You don't think it's hard enough to
That's
do
fine.
that
I mean,
already?
they-
Do you know how
you
hard
just-
that phase is? That phase was so hard, even if you knew and everyone was in their exact right spot, with the amount of blazes that were going off and the amount of raid damage. It was insane. That phase was insane without the weirdness of where you're supposed to go.
But it removes
Right,
the
right.
entire like reacting to what happens part of that mechanic. I agree that it would have been the thing that they showed.
I mean, it's just a bad mechanic in general.
Like,
Like,
it
they
was a
should
bad
just not have
mechanic.
design mechanic of that.
But yeah,
the
there's
mechanic was fine. It's just they had how you interacted with it, how you initially got it, and multiple other parts of it were not. I mean, I guess overall, yeah, they didn't end up executing and making a good mechanic. But like the idea of that isn't bad. It's just the private aura part, and then the how you. I mean, the thing about it, like it's also the punishment. If you're going to make that many people have to go in the exact right spot, okay, you're supposed to be able to YOLO it. We did, by the way. We on our third pull, complete full YOLO. Hey, some of you guys try to go over to the left and right, but then like fix it if there's too many on that side. We got it on our third try. It's possible, right? It was just not consistent. That like if they were to just make it less punishing if you missed a single orb, like a single orb was just your raid is dead. But if that wasn't the case, then you could actually YOLO it more and you wouldn't worry about it, right? It would just
There
be
are
like
so many
kind of
solutions. Like, yeah, I mean, like my solution would be just reduce the amount of orbs, right? Like, what if there was just like 2, 3 less orbs that you have to deal with, so you have more people that can back up soak. And they should also just give players their mark before Farok comes down. Like, what if, all right, Farok flies in the air, and then everyone gets a specific color right away, so you can be like, oh, okay, so I'm this color, and then you can just somewhat assign players to left and right off the bat. There are so many solutions that can be like, they can literally slow down the movement of the orbs. I don't think they need to like completely gut the mechanic. It's just they never really made an attempt to make the mechanic feasible without private auras or macros, whatever.
So I do have a question. So not necessarily, but in a roundabout way, all of our solutions to the really, really bad private auras so far will make the mechanic easier. Do you think it's possible that if they keep creating a bunch of really cool raid mechanics and really hard bosses, that it is impossible for them or very, very hard for them to create very difficult raid mechanics that don't require some kind of weak aura? Like on average, like there's probably some, like I can literally name you mechanics that were super, super hard, really hard, things that were great visually and required no WeakAuras, right? But I don't know. Just that thought. Do you think that's more of like a just, I don't know, sometimes mechanics, if they're hard enough and people do appreciate the challenge of hard mechanics, that sometimes it's going to be like, wow, WeakAura. As long as WeakAuras exist, you're going to find a way to do that, regardless of the private aura restriction.
I think
That's one of those. Yeah, go ahead, Jonas.
I think there are some mechanics that have met that bar. Like even on Fire Act, we had the seeds and the seed blaze overlap, and blaze just blaze by itself. Particularly if blaze did like 30% more damage on some of the sets where there was nothing else going on, right? And you like really had to not get hit by extras of it or whatever. But even before that, like blaze did do a lot of damage as well.
If you got hit by 2 blazes, you died.
Yeah,
just straight up. Yeah.
There were parts of P1 where there was a blaze set with nothing else happening, and so it was kind of a lot. It felt a little bit fake there, but even still, like the blaze seed mechanical dance, I feel like that's one of the most impressive parts of a fight they've done. Blasphemy on Anduin as well. Like there are a bunch of mechanics where
Wander's bombs.
Yeah, Blasphemy on Anduin's a weird one as well because you could spaceship UI it. That's what Echo did, right? You guys YOLO'd
Yeah, but it was irrelevant.
Echo spaceshipped it, and like I think private
Them
auras are
spaceshipping that was so degenerate. That actually probably was like Blizzard was like, these guilds cannot help themselves. We have to make it's their fault. They were like, why on earth would they spaceship UI this mechanic?
I think Blasphemy is a good example of like private auring that mechanic would have made it better, right? Everybody would have YOLO'd it, right? And that would have made it, very, very slightly better because Echo would have had a better mechanic than what they ended up doing, which was realistically like they could have YOLO'd it as well, probably exactly equally as efficiently.
I think they gained
it.
nothing by doing that. I mean, I remember going back and looking at our progression, and they didn't have more consistent or any. I don't think necessarily we had more consistent P1s either, but like our P1s were like exactly the same success chance by spaceshipping it and YOLOing it. It was unnecessary. Yeah.
And like that was a fun mechanic because you could do some thinking. Like we had like a highway and you had a traffic rules, and Unat had some of that as well with the marks on that fight, right? Like so, there are mechanics like that whether or not they're private auras, right? Seed of Emirdrasil and Corrupted Seed are technically private auras, but their difficulty is all like reactive dancing to what's happening and reacting to different people being targeted by the swirlies and the tornadoes and the blazes, right? And like that type of difficulty is evergreen. That'll always be hard. They can always ratchet up that type of difficulty, but it's also the hardest, I think, for them to execute properly as well, because it is like so easy to miss in either direction with a mechanic like Halandris Bombs or like Fire Axe Seeds. Like that, if that gets too hard, it gets too hard super fast.
It all just comes back to the mechanic is bad. Like I don't think it's necessarily private aura issue. Like obviously private aura it comes with a bunch of issues. It's more of mechanics are bad.
Yeah. But
Yep.
private auras are a thing that makes certain bad mechanics much, much worse. And so seeing it in the game, it's like if every car had reverse airbags in it, right? It's like, this is probably not going to matter in my car most of the time, right? But like, if the car just had an airbag that was full of like spikes, like you wouldn't feel good about driving the car, even though you're probably not going to get in a crash, right? Like it's probably not one of the bad mechanics.
Yeah, it's cosmetic.
Yeah, it's who cares, right? But then like,
Yeah, it's like
well,
healers.
what if you RNG into this being another one of the mechanics that's just made infinitely worse by being a private aura, right? And there's no upside is the other thing. The upside we talked about was rending charge is maybe ever so slightly better, right? Like maybe it's 5% better as a mechanic than if you had a WeakAura tell you to go to triangle. Maybe it's 25% better, but
Yeah, it's
Shadowbound,
like-
Flamebound, and Volcanic Heart were 4 zillion percent worse.
Yeah, if you have like 50 airbags, right? Like 10, like 5 of them are filled with a little bit of money, and one of them have spikes, and you're just rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Ooh,
You wouldn't
know,
take that. You wouldn't take that.
Well, unless you're in a mental state that was not particularly good, yeah.
Yep.
I wonder if Blizzard intentionally don't mess with some of these mechanics because they have airbags in them. Like for Rock Intermission, they never changed the mechanic. Well, I mean, they kind of changed the mechanic, but they didn't like really change it because there were already airbags, right?
What, just making
Blizzard
it not
was
a
like,
private
all
aura
right.
anymore?
I mean,
What does airbags mean? Does that just mean private aura?
I don't know.
I mean, what Blizzard just sees that, like, oh,
You
people
just
are
said
doing
it
the
so
mechanic
confidently
fine,
that
right?
they were airbags.
Well,
on the
you
fight.
know what I mean? Like, Blizzard probably saw that, like, oh, like, guilds are fine with this mechanic. They have no problems. Let's not mess with it. That could be a very real thing. Like, if the mechanic
Didn't
was
we just
not
talk about how
private
like
aura-able.
everybody wipes the most to that stupid thing?
Yeah, but I mean, people still get through it, right? Because they have.
Yeah, but like, okay, how do they nerf
macro.
any mechanic ever then? Because any by any metric of people get through it,
No.
it does
That's
one of the
that's the
worst.
point I'm making. Like, I wonder if they would have nerfed or changed that mechanic had there not been any of these macro shenanigans.
Oh, like, well, so they have changed it a little bit. Like they did reduce the damage you took from
blazes
soaking
and
your
stuff,
orbs.
yeah,
Not just the
and that.
blazes, but also towards the end, one of the later nerfs was
Right.
a massive reduction in the like damage amp coefficient for soaking multiple.
But I just wonder if they would have like made more drastic changes.
I mean, they
to
wouldn't have had, like the
or,
mechanic
done it
would have been
earlier.
easier if it wasn't a private aura. It would have been less necessary to target that phase if you could just get auto assigned by a weak aura and you had a consistent spot for everybody in your raid, or like pretty.
Okay, but what
consistent
if you were
spots.
not allowed to do any of that? Like, what if you were not allowed to?
That's
have
what they
weak
tried to do with
auras or
private
macros?
auras. Yeah, that doesn't work though. Okay, like what if
No,
they?
but it's just a huge assumption. Like, just a huge assumption that like if
Okay,
it worked,
assume they
and had
actually made
achieved
it so
their
you
goal.
had to YOLO it.
Yeah, would they have changed the mechanic? Because I feel like
Yeah.
certainly they would have, right?
I think they would have had to, yeah, because I mean the success rate on it would have been super low. Because like Liquid probably could YOLO that
It was really
probably
so
like
we-
40% of the time after they progged at 100 pulls or something, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It was really hard. We actually tricked ourselves into thinking we didn't need an aura because we yielded on the third time. We're like, we fucking got this shit, and then we were in hell. We got so lucky to do it on our third thing. Like we were getting farmed by that, and we're like, okay, we need a WeakAura for this.
Yeah, I think my guild could maybe get to like 20%, maybe something like that on a mechanic like that, and then like a guild outside the Hall of Fame, I think could get to. We will choose these 20
5%.
positions, and if those exact 20 are
complete YOLO,
evenly
actual
distributed,
YOLO.
which is like a 5% thing or something like that, then we
Yeah, if you
can
happen to
kill
get
this. So
lucky.
yeah, that would be 100% nerfed by Blizzard. So, but that I mean, the hypothetical I think is dangerous because the whole point is that you can't do that, right? Like you can't.
Yeah.
You're basically saying like, oh, well, okay, but hypothetically, what if the private aura did the thing it's supposed to do, but that can't happen is the whole problem with the private auras. Like unless they actually
there
took
is
away
one
the
solution.
stuff. Which
The
they
other
can't.
question
They
is
haven't.
like certain mechanics can just never happen. Like one thing that existed before private auras were jailer bombs, and like imagine them making jailer bombs where you have to like jump in. There's 6 people to get it. You have to go in an exact thing, and if both people jump in the same one, it's a death. And if someone doesn't jump into one, and then everyone dies, right? So like that. If they made that a private aura, they would nowadays. That's not a thing. That boss would have taken hundreds. It would have taken twice as long because it's in
Well,
P1.
Well, but that boss would have been nerfed though. Like if
What if
they
you
would just
ping?
made the bombs last like 20 seconds.
That's what I'm
feel like,
saying, though.
I feel like pings are pretty OP for jailer bombs. I think
Nah, there's no way that's enough.
Pings would actually help jailer bombs a lot.
pings would be
it would help a
immense
lot.
for that.
It would help
Maybe
a
if there was
lot,
like
yeah.
one, I still think it would add a ton of wipes, but
it would still be fucked.
If like a bomb was like 1 second longer to choose and pings, the thing with pings is the longer you have to actually do the thing, the more pings are valuable for doing it. People probably are seeing that when they go back and do Echo of Neltharion without their map WeakAuras. But they, like that's the question is like, can you just never have a mechanic like that? And then your response is, oh well, then nerf it. And it's like that's kind of brings me back to what I'm saying. Like, anytime you're gonna not do a private aura and you're saying the mechanic is bad, it's basically just like don't make hard mechanics because there's
No, but I mean, you can still have like the design of the mechanic. It just wouldn't be that extreme. Like, 'cause, I mean, the idea of the jailer bombs is still you have to go in the holes or you blow up, right? Like it doesn't matter how long it takes. It being 5 seconds or 20 seconds doesn't really.
Well, if it's 20
Ancient
seconds,
mechanic
it makes it
entirely.
significantly easier by
It makes it easier, but you're still doing the mechanic how it was intended, is what I mean.
yeah, but okay,
Yeah,
but
it's
20
just much
seconds
easier.
is enough to the point where it's like,
Right,
this
right.
is stupid, right? Like, what are we doing here? I think, though, that jailer bombs aren't something I want to try and defend and be like, I got to keep jailer bombs in my game. Like, that wasn't a good mechanic. I don't know. I wouldn't mind them not making it because the weak aura version of that mechanic was also not good. A private aura version that was on like an 8-second timer instead of a 5-second timer. If you couldn't macro it, probably would be good because pinging that would probably be kind of fun on 8 seconds or 10 seconds or something.
Yeah.
But on 8 seconds, let me tell you what you'd do. You'd press a macro, and then it would
I
be
wonder-
the same.
It's really we've really noticed how bad specifically the two mechanics were this expansion that were like awful private auras. I wonder if you were to go back in time, how many mechanics in raids were like notable. Oh my god, with a private aura, this would have been bad. Like what jumped out to my head was Star Augur, but like Star Augur was perfectly fine without a weak aura. Like guilds used weak aura for that, but like you could do that. We did it without a weak aura. I think we killed it world 5th before any videos came out. I don't know, it seemed fine. There was Archimond. Like Method famously had that like radar thing that showed where everything was, but Paragon killed it like a day after them, world 2nd, and they did it like natty. Like they just did it, right?
Almost everybody used that radar on that fight, right? But like, I actually bet that would have been a mechanic that would have been more fun if you had to YOLO it, right? Like if you had to actually
Yeah,
do it the
I
Paragon
don't know
way.
if they nattied it. I heard that Paragon had some kind of tech working for it to like figure
Okay.
out partners and stuff like that. It wasn't like fully natty, but I know it wasn't. I mean, the radar was super OP. There was a reason that after those two bosses I just named, Archimond and Star Augur, WeakAuras received significant nerfs in what they were able to do after both of those fights.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not sure
actually
if
kind
there
of
are
funny we
any
talk
other.
about this because I was actually messing with WeakAuras earlier, and I was trying to figure out if there was a solution where you can mouse over like a list of names to like dot stuff or like use CC on specific stuff, and that apparently that used to be a thing.
Enemy
but
grid.
It's
Yeah.
enemy grid, and they got removed.
Yep.
Because like that would have been so OP. Like imagine you have like 50 mobs on your screen, and you're playing a multi-dotting spec, and you just like mouse over through the
Play the
entire
grid.
list, and
That's what you
It's
did.
good they removed that though. It's good they removed that. That's corny. Like I think it'd be it's way better to like actually like mousing over nameplates isn't hard, you know?
Nah, mousing over nameplates is hard as fuck. I mean, goddamn, that would be broken as fuck right now if we had the ability to use that, or particularly multi.
But it would make the game look like shit, you know?
it would
Like,
look like shit for sure.
Also,
but, I mean,
it would just be
multi-dotting
like
stuff
less
in general.
gameplay, right? Like you would no longer be looking at the 3D world. You would just be looking at your Excel spreadsheet each time, and
I mean,
ticking
that's how
off
I
each
play
of the
high keys right now,
boxes.
anyways.
Yeah,
So it was just like another addition to my high keys.
that's fair. All right,
alrighty.
I think we've done a good justice to the private aura discussion for now.
Yeah, I wanted to talk. We were yapping a little bit about other stuff. I wanted to give some WoW stuff. I thought it'd be kind of funny if we did just end up yapping for the whole time. I was gonna say at the end, and there was an alpha build in Totemic came out, and then you just end the podcast, just be like, yep, and that happened.
Totemic's pretty cool as
did
well. I
happen.
think, especially I think I like the look of it for Resto. I don't know enough for Enhance. Although I'm playing Enhance in Mop Remix, so I'm trying to learn that spec because I don't know it very well. My goal for the next few months is I got to brush up on all the specs I don't, have super good.
Enhance is incredible.
Yeah, it's already fun at level like 30, which not a lot of specs are without their whole talent tree, but I'm already having a good time. Although I think a lot of that's just the mop remix. Like I have you have an alt if you're doing mop remix basically, which is
also sick. When you talk to a lot of people who play different classes in this game, especially if they've played it for the last like 8-10 years, if you're like, when was the best this class was, they'll give you like a very passionate answer about when the best to play that class was. With Enhance, it's like right now. Like you are playing the best version that Enhance has ever had. At least if you're playing Ellie, in my opinion. But a lot of people like the Storm one too. All right, what is our Patreon question? Poddy, hello, Patreon man.
All right, this one comes in from definitely not an Ellie Shaman main. It says, "Are War Within changes overhyped?" I want to preface this by saying I'm insanely hyped for the new expansion. Yeah. Some of the changes we've seen for War Within, be they talent reworks or hero talents, are huge wins. But what if these actually are and continue to be outliers? I think the quality of changes has been pretty inconsistent. Mage hero talents, for example, are an unequivocal banger. But the DK rework has quite a few missteps that would be expected from one of the early Dragonflight talent trees. It's also doubling down on the defensive creep, which so far has not been addressed or even really been acknowledged as something they're actively working on. There are also some hero talents that miss the mark badly, but not badly enough to likely merit the Oracle treatment. These include trees like Pack Leader, Trickster, and Elemental Shaman Stormbringer. I think that last one would be controversial to call that one a miss, but Pack Leader and Trickster I think are not as much controversial. Most people don't like those. The expectation should be that every spec that has not been polished during Dragonflight will get some form of rework with War Within. By now, I'm not actually sure if this will be the case, and with the quality of changes being this inconsistent, I see the potential for quite a few specs or classes to come out on the losing side come release with things like Druid Shaman survivability or the raid buff situation. Greetings from Mage Prison. All right, thank you. Not an Ellie Shaman main.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
A lot of meat in this one, yeah.
Well, I want to kind of disagree with everything. Right here, the expectation that should be that every spec that has not been polished during Dragonflight will get some form of rework in the War Within. I think that is going to happen and is already happening. Like every
week we got like 2 or more specs being reworked, right?
Yeah, like it's like they're cooking with that. Like I feel like that's just the one thing I agreed with most of the other stuff they were saying, but I do think they will get those polishes.
I do think there are going to be some stinker hero talent trees compared to the good ones, right? And hopefully they get around to fixing all the Hunter ones, TBH and Lightsmith or whatever. But anything that's shipping 39 trees, the best 10 are going to be better than the worst 10. It's just a question of by an embarrassing amount or by a normal amount, right?
It just feels like they have way too much on their plate right now because they didn't do as much as they should have for Dragonflight trees, as definitely not an Ellie Shaman main has mentioned. There's because we kind of expected a lot more from the Dragonflight talent trees. Some of them were complete bangers, but some of them just stayed bad for most of the expansion. Like DK didn't get touched at all for almost the entirety of Dragonflight, which I feel like is a major crime. And only now are we getting it. So I wonder how much work will they even really put into some of the newer stuff. It feels like they're always working into the future and we're never really working on whatever is problematic at the moment. And the whole defensive creep, that's also something that we've talked about every single episode and it still has not been addressed. In fact, they're even doubling down on it.
I like that this Patreon questioner, we like to know that they said, oh, I don't even know if Blizzard's even addressed that. I like that we've podcasted enough about the defensive creep that people are like, how has Blizzard not addressed this problem? Like we've manifested this into the world.
We've moved the Overton window on this one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
keep spreading the good word, pod friends. Keep putting it out there.
I think that they don't actually have that much on their plate this expansion though, right? Like I don't think hero talents represent biting off more than they can chew because they aren't doing that much other stuff this expansion, right? It's not like they're coming out with artifact weapons or Azurite traits or essences or conduits or soul binds,
but you
right?
say this, but they didn't do anything about the Dragonflight trees either.
During Dragonflight, right? But all of them are getting changed during this beta cycle, and during Dragonflight, there were changes, just weren't to all of them, but every patch basically had 2 to 5 specs or class trees getting overhauled to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what class you play, right? Because like if you're one of those like mage or
Yeah.
battle priest or paladins, whatever, you're probably like pretty optimistic and you probably feel good. But if you're one of those specs that has been left in the dirt for the entirety of Dragonflight, it feels like
I
it's still gonna be more of the same.
I would expect there to be they'll take a big swing at or they'll take a swing at most specs, almost all specs probably, and the hero talents over the course of the next few months as well. They'll iterate on many of them, especially many of the ones hopefully like Pack Leader, Trickster, that are and the Trickster has already been confirmed that they're going to take that one back to the shop basically, like Oracle was. I would say that once War Within launches, the odds that any given spec gets reworked in the middle of War Within are pretty low. Like they're probably going to do one or two
Right.
per patch again, but that's. I agree that paradigm is going to continue, but I wouldn't classify that as like a War Within change. Like that's just every World of Warcraft expansion for all of history has not included. We're overhauling all 39 specs every patch.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
made
like
sense that was the expansion's sole purpose. And like you said, I think in the next expansion they'll maybe. I mean, hopefully what they keep doing is like every time cool tier sets happen, they just like, okay, people really want to keep this tier set bonus. We liked this a lot. Okay, we'll get rid of this talent point no one ever wants, and we'll give you this. And like just little stuff like that. You don't have to get a full rework to get something like that. But yeah, I don't think you're gonna see that, and I wonder if that'll end up being worth it. Like Dragonflight, basically, hey, there's no extra shit. We're just gonna like get the talents right. All right, at the beginning of this expansion, like hopefully the talents are in a good spot. But like, what else are they gonna work on? Like, are they gonna balance hero talents the whole expansion? Hero talents a are a microscopic amount of work compared to the class inspectries. They're like it's nothing. So I feel like they should still have a lot of time to do a lot of the same class and spec updates because I think that's something that kind of constantly needs to happen. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
that's the
agree with
big
you,
thing,
Dorky,
though.
that it would
It's
be
like
good if they did it more, right? Like, and if they didn't leave, Shockwave where it was all expansion or whatever, like that.
right.
Jesus.
It just
It
feels
would be
really
good
bad
if they
when
upped
they
the
just like
pacing of that. Yeah.
yeah, because like it just feels really bad when we continually do this whole leave whatever is happening in the current batch at how it is, and then just like work in the future. Because if Warvin comes out and your spec is still feeling like dog shit, it's gonna be very hard to expect anything out of your spec, and you're probably better off just like playing something else that you would enjoy more.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree that they should. It would be really nice if you could expect, something as bad as say Shockwave's position that like everybody agrees is bad, that they then fix in the next expansion. Like it would be really good if you could expect that to happen in 10.1 instead of 11.0. But I wouldn't penalize War Within expansion feature development for that. Like I feel like that's like getting mad at a complete like that's getting mad at them doing one thing and being like, well, why aren't you doing this other thing? It's like, well, they should make a good expansion and they should also be updating the game with important updates as they need to happen. And we shouldn't be looking at War Within's expansion features through the lens of, well, they didn't move Shockwave, they didn't change the DK tree. Like those are two separate problems.
Yeah, I mean they should definitely work on both, but I just feel like it's more important that the current game is as good as it can be versus
So you
what
you
it's
want
gonna
more
be.
resource on live and less on
Right.
like
That's
you want them to
exactly
be
what I'm
doing
talking about.
less there.
Yeah, like if that's what it means, like obviously they should be doing both. But if
Right.
what it means is like doing a little bit less for War Within and just having more of that right now, it would be actually huge. In fact, I don't know if you saw Dratnos, they changed Battle Scarred Veteran. They actually finally fixed
Yeah.
that talent for the first time in 18 months or however long it's
Yeah.
been. That one talent that they've brought to Dragonflight for Warriors has been bugged the entire expansion. And it
Yeah.
finally got fixed, and they're actually putting it in 10.2.7. Have they ever done this before where they
Yeah, they ship
made changes to
changes
something,
early
Fix the
sometimes.
talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
fix
not
something
you're
like
right,
fix
it's like
something in
it's
the next
the
expansion,
exception,
and then they just
not
like
the rule.
bring it into the life.
Yeah, of all the changes they made in the alpha, I think this is the only thing that they've pushed live, right? So
Yeah, it's pretty
definitely an
rare.
exception.
Yeah.
Super rare.
It is good though, although I don't know what talent you're dropping for that thing. That's tough. All the talent points are so good. They buffed the stam armor node. That's tough. What are you gonna do I want that one.
I mean, I wonder if they could even do something like that for like rest of just Druidry. Like, imagine if they could bring the War Within Druidry to just live right now. I wonder what that'd be like.
Dude, there's so much from the War Within that I'm so excited for. I can't wait for just pre-patch coming out and like putting all this stuff in the game. To some extent, it's tough though because like I feel like if they could accelerate one War Within feature, like it would realistically the biggest bang for their buck would probably be all your mounts are dragon riding mounts. Like that's probably feature number one. It would be something like that, right? It wouldn't be like
Man, they should have done that for Mop Remix.
Hell,
I feel like,
dude,
that'd been huge.
I would roll Druid though. I would have had to roll Druid for the flight form dragon riding.
That would be sick.
It's so good.
Yeah, like the biggest reason I say all this is because I remember specifically in season 1 of Dragonflight, I was like super optimistic. It was so great having almost every single week there's something changing, whether it's like balance changes or like dungeon changes or whatever it may be. And then, seasons go on and they just care less and less and less.
Yeah.
And like we look at this season, right? Like, oh, why haven't they done anything about VDH? Like why aren't they making the sigils like, just one sigil instead of two? And it's
they did
kind of clear
VDH
that like they just
like a week
they
ago.
did, but like
I
it
agree,
just feels like
enough.
such a dog shit band-aid fix.
Oh, how did that go?
Avengers Demon Hunter went from being the best tank by a lot to being the best tank by also still a lot, but slightly less of a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just feels worse overall. Like the Demon
So
Hunter
a good
doesn't feel
nerf,
as
right?
good.
So the nerf made sense.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was a good nerf because like
Not a
it
good
just
nerf in that it made it right. It's that anytime
didn't make it right,
something is
they
the
just
best and you
touched the
nerf it
wrong
and it's
thing,
still
I
the
feel like.
best, then nerfing it was correct.
Yeah. It is a good nerf. In the context of if they were doing weekly nerfs of that size, it was a perfectly sized nerf. Given that they don't seem to be interested in doing more tuning, probably, it wasn't big enough. It was like they should have taken a slightly bigger swing at least.
It also just felt like they didn't approach the right nerf.
I mean, they did aim at the sigils, right? Like they took aim, I think, at the utility. I think they don't want to make illuminated sigils not let you do double sigils because that's like a cool thing that Demon Hunter has now, which I get that.
Yeah.
I think if they went back to one charge of sigil, it would make that class less fun to play. And I think they're at a really hard crossroads. Like, it seems so obvious that has to get nerfed, though. Like,
yeah, at least for
but
silence and chains, man.
Yeah, maybe it's for like you let it be for sigil of flame and maybe even the Kyrian thing, and I don't know.
That's that was my proposed solution for it, was make it only apply to Flame and Elysian Decree. You could maybe do Sigil Misery as well. Maybe that's fine, but Chains and Silence, it's too much. It's too much, man. Anyway, I think that's a good spot to leave off for today. Thanks for the question. Definitely not an Ellie Shaman main. That was a good one. Some good discussion there as well. We've covered a wide range of topics, and I believe my feat debuted on the internet as well for the first time. So that's a cool thing to happen.
That I cannot believe.
That's Patreon content.
That's for the masses, but the Patreon content's got even
more.
more.
No, we should show the foot blurred for this episode, but for a Patreon exclusive, it's just like a 3-second clip of the foot.
Subscribe to the Patreon.
All right, maybe Frog will figure that out. Yeah, log in.
Also, Max, you have something to shout out.
Oh yeah. Good comms, Dorki.
Yeah, I'm the WeakAura guy here, man.
You are living WeakAura. Okay. All right, we do, as Dorki has reminded us, we do have one final exciting shout out to deploy before we get out of here. Max, why don't you tell us what do you want people to know about?
All right, we have the Eve Ascension 4 tournament presented by TL with presenting partner Alienware and Raider.io. They've done this the past few years, but there's a 2-week qualifier for women and non-binary players. It's starting on May 28th and May 29th for EU. I know there's a prize pool with it. Do you know about the layout of the tournament? I don't know exactly how it's run.
I think the last one was like TGP style. I don't know what style this one is going, but I know that it was on Twitch. You could watch it last time, so I assume that'll be possible again this time.
It's on Twitch. I see that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And then so we'll probably have more information for that, but I just wanted to quick shout that out. I think that will be maybe you'll shout it out again. I think it's after our next podcast is when that will be out, and you guys can watch that, or at least the qualifiers. Will start.
Yeah, I've seen some like teams looking for players as well. So if you are interested in competing, you're a woman, non-binary player or something, check Twitter. Or X, formerly Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't care, man. It's Twitter.
We will call that Twitter for...
I don't care, man. Yo.
They changed... Do you guys see... Okay, little tangent from the Eve Ascension thing before we get back to it. they changed finally the URL. Now you actually go to x.com, like as of basically today. It's it doesn't stay on twitter.com anymore. It's now x.com.
Really?
Yeah.
I am looking at the thing right now when I talk
it's
about
like
your tier list
rolling
on
out.
Twitter.
It rolled out for me like 3 hours ago, where I'm now on x.com instead of twitter.com, because it always used to.
I am on
stay
twitter.com/Dratnos/status looking at your thing. So you're still on Twitter, which is good.
That's good. I hope to stay here as long as I can, man.
I'm not on this enough.
I will be so sad if in 10 years people refer to it as X. But I'm sure
no
kids
way.
will, because like they're gonna only know it as X, you know?
But anyways, whichever of those sites you call it, which we hope it's Twitter, if you're following any high-end women players or whatever, there's a few teams I've seen that are recruiting like 1 or 2 people, so you may still be able to get in there if you're yeah, exactly. There's some powerful teams that have played in this the last few as well. Some cool names of people you could play with. So yeah, cool tournament, cool shout out. That's it though. That's the end of our PoddyC for real this time.
Mm-hmm.
GN gamers.
Yep, GN.
GN.
Pod bye.